Hey guys, I wanted to do some videos that aren't necessarily ex Jehovah's Witness. And yesterday I did talk about on the live stream that I was into other things, and art here is something that I really enjoy doing. So today I'm going to talk about art. I'm going to show you a few things that I've done in the past here, and we'll go over some of the basic art supplies that we have. So this is just some sketches. All of these sketches and drawings are either off of YouTube or Google Images, except for this one here. This is from a photograph I took. This is a real person's ear. But this is from Google Images, and these are just some that I created with just out of my own imagination. But as you can see, I like to practice drawing eyes and different types of parts of the face. This one here is done in charcoal. But all of these are done. The black and white ones are done with just regular dollar store sketching pad and dollar store pencils. I have a few pencils that I do use that aren't dollar store, but a lot of them are. There's my cat. But again, here's another one that I did from my imagination. Well, no, this one is a combination from my imagination as well as I used a prototype model from Google Images, a face there, and I just made it a little bit more cartoonish than what the original was. I had some trouble here with the lips at first, but now that I've had some time away from this picture and this drawing, it looks different to me, and I think that's a very interesting experience that you go through as an artist every single time, is that your work looks one way when you start to put it down on paper, but when you have some time away from it, it's like it changes. It doesn't change, does it? Or do you change? It's such an interesting experience, and every time it's, for me personally as an artist, and it feels weird to call myself an artist, even though I've got an entire portfolio of things. I still don't see myself as an artist in that respect. It's just a weird thing, you know. I think the ex-Jehovah's Witness, the Jehovah's Witness background, it stifles you as far as creativity, right? They don't place any importance on this, and for me, it's a lifeline. It's like food. If I don't do this, I get really down and depressed. You know, I feel sick. I don't function the same way. This right here I did, and as you can see, it looks very cartoonish. It looks not as realistic as this version, right? And sometimes in the past, when I haven't really spent a lot of time doing art, my processing of my environment goes into extremely left-brained, and it's hard to shift into right brain mode, or R mode is what Betty Edwards refers to it. And R mode is when you are able to see things differently in such a way where you're able to put it on paper realistically. And it's all in how you see this. And for people that don't have the ability to do this, it's not that you can't do it, but it's really a shift in how you perceive this. If you look at it as an eye, you're going to draw the symbol of an eye instead of an eye. You see? You're going to draw the symbol of it. But as your perception changes, and it's a gradual process for most of us, your art is going to reflect that. You know, unless you're going for the cartoon look or the sketchy look, like in this one here, I actually went for just a brief a cartoonish type of sketch look where you basically just have lines. Okay, and that's what I went for in this particular instance. But sometimes, if I personally don't work, if I've not spent enough time on anything artistic, if I haven't drawn or sketched in a while, I find myself having some cognitive distortions, in the sense that my perception is extremely left-brained and I can't shift back to R mode to really put down and draw what it is I see. And that's basically for anybody. If you say that you can't draw, that's all it is. It is your perception. It is your perception, because it's just as easy to draw a line as it is to shade and give the illusion that there's 3 dimensions on a flat surface. Right? It's just as easy to do that, because the main key is to get away from defining and categorizing what it is you see and actually draw what it is you see. And you can do this a lot easier if you turn the drawing upside down as you try to put it down on paper. So that's another tip, is to try to turn things upside down. Like if you start with this here, these lines here, you can't define what this is. You can't say this is a leg, really, right? This area right here, this weird shape right here in between the skirt, the leg, and this piece of clothing here. It looks almost like an L, right? A weird shaped L, but you can't really say it's an L. But in any case, that's the key. You have to be able to let go of the definition of what you think you see and actually put down these weird shapes. These are really weird shapes. Look at this here. It looks kind of like a D, right? This corner right here in between your leg and this loop of the fabric that's kind of folded over her leg. So if you're having trouble putting things down on paper, try to turn the object upside down, the drawing, and then copy it like that. That's another trick that I learned from Betty Edwards. The book is called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. She has some excellent workshops, by the way. So this is another one here. I went for the cartoonish look, and I imagined one day in the new system I would have a back like that. I'm kidding. I'm working on it. It's going to take some time, but, you know, we all have dreams, right? So one day I'll have a nice, muscular, wide back like that. It's one of my things. I like working on my back when I can. But then here's another one. This is automatic drawing. I just took a Sharpie, which is one of my favorites, by the way. I cannot live without Sharpies. I write with Sharpies and I draw with Sharpies. This is my magic wand here. And I keep boxes and boxes of Sharpies because I go through a Sharpie probably every other day. But this is basically called automatic drawing, and you just put down the pen on paper and you just go. You don't think, you don't try to define, you go. Your hand moves, there's a flow that comes out. And it's very relaxing and it's very revealing, especially if you focus on a particular problem. This is a particular problem that I focused on, a personal problem, and I needed some insight. I needed to go and self-examine deeply beyond my everyday consciousness. And, you know, there is a sense of trust you have to build with yourself in doing this. And you also have to have courage, because you have to be careful what you ask for. If you want to have insight, you want to know something from yourself, when you give it to yourself, you have to be able to receive that and not push it away, because then you're going to lose your self-trust, and that's going to undermine your identity and your ability to set healthy boundaries with other people and with yourself. So, you know, you can see how this trickles into all different areas of life. And it's very complex, but at the same time, it's also very simply. This is a shape, but you can't really categorize it. There's a lot of gray area, you know, nothing's black or white here. There's some gray areas, So you have different textures of life even. You have these scraggly lines here, but then you also have very curvy feminine lines, right? You have some dark spots and you have some light spots. You have some cross hatching and then you have some stippling here. So you have all different kinds of things, and what do you call this? What is this? It kind of looks like a, I don't know what it would be, you know. So automatic drawing, you can get a lot of deep insight, because when you take the labels off, when you stop categorizing what you think it is you see and actually draw and put down what it is you see, then that's when things become a little bit more realistic. But don't be afraid, and this is what anybody can do, you know. You can do this right now. You can just take a pen on paper and just let it flow and draw whatever comes out. Don't think, don't try to make it look any kind of certain way, and you can be surprised by the things that come out. This was another problem that I worked on, and I got some resolution, because when I had some time to get away from the actual drawing and come back to it, once again, it felt like the drawing had changed and I could see it for what it was a lot better. And of course, anytime you put down something on paper, others are able to see clearly into you and who you are and what you're about. So I'm sharing this art with you. This is kind of personal, but you know, I figured that you might be interested in it. And this is another one here I did. I tried, at this time I didn't really know or felt comfortable enough with shading, so I did a lot of smudging. So this type of paper had a rough texture, and it was really great because I tried to make it smooth as possible, but as well keep it a little rustic or rough looking and feeling, because I wanted it to have this dramatic look, you know. And as you can see, it really worked out well, and I was very proud of that. This was one of my first few drawings after I had gotten the Betty Edwards book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. This is another automatic drawing here. This is just plain old pencil, but I had to copy this one because I actually gave the original to someone. So they wanted it. It was just a plain pencil, and I think I had an orange colored pencil that I used there, but as you can see, automatic drawing is really a lot of fun, and you know, you can go back and learn so much about yourself, and especially when you're taking a particular problem and then you're setting the pen on paper or the pencil on paper, and you're just going and you're letting it flow. You're making the movements whichever flows out for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you set out to have that. This one here, this drawing, I tried to draw a woman, but for some reason I couldn't figure out why my face there that I was drawing was turning out to look like a transgender woman or a man's face, you know, a very masculine face, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And so I was very frustrated at the time, and I just said, I'm just going to screw the hair. I'm just going to take a crayon, and I'm just going to do this little, you know, these little strands and be done with it, because at the time I just couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. Now that I've had some time away from this one, and I got so frustrated with this one that I just tucked it away, and I didn't even want to see it anymore. I don't even think I planned on keeping it this long, but for some reason it has not left my life, and I have it in this portfolio now to discuss. One of the reasons is that my lines were a little too angular here, you see. And when you have this going, it's fine if you're trying to create a masculine face, or if you're intending to draw a specific type of woman. But in order to have the curvy, the feminine features to soften it, the lines are too angular here. And so, you can look back at this, but I think it's still a beautiful drawing. Honestly, I love it. I'm going to keep it, and I'm glad I've kept it all this time. You're going to have, as an artist, and I think everybody's an artist, even if you don't know how to draw a stick figure, I still think of you as an artist, because you have the potential, Like I said, if you turn things upside down, a lot of times it's easier to put those lines on paper because you can't categorize it. That's the whole problem. You have to be able to shift. It's just a simple shift in your head, because your fingers, the movements that artists make to create drawings like this are the same movements that you make to create stick figures and, these little strands of hair, okay? It's the same type of movements, except they're placed in a certain way, and then they're blended gradually. And, blending is all of a matter of your hands just moving across the surface of the paper, or taking some toilet paper to blend, or a paper stump. That's it. And understanding lights and darks, right? And here, this is another one I drew from the Betty Edwards book. I really recommend it because I had taken art instruction schools, that correspondence course in art. I had taken that, and it had taken me all of 5 years to complete that thing. And I still couldn't draw realistic faces. I still couldn't draw like this, okay? And, I did learn a lot, and I am appreciative of it, but I could not do what it is I was able to do from the Betty Edwards book. The Betty Edwards book, I think within 24 hours, I was able to draw facial portraits. And this was one of them. I was able to draw this thing within a day's time from the Betty Edwards book. And this is another automatic drawing there. I kind of got frustrated with this one too. I wanted to be able to draw this person's face at an angle, but I couldn't figure out the skull. So, the head shape because it's not a flat frontal, right? It's not a side, right? It's kind of like a 3/4, I think here I kind of had that problem too, but, I was already frustrated because I couldn't figure out why my face was too hard, because the actual model was, the features didn't have this problem, and I wasn't understanding why I wasn't getting what I was drawing, what I was seeing, and it was because I was making these lines too angular. I was translating them as angular when they weren't. The original drawing, the lines are not as angular. So you're going to learn a lot about how your distortions can get in the way. If your drawing has a problem, you're going to learn a lot about yourself and how you solve that problem. You got to be patient with yourself. And, you can't just discard your work, because I can't tell you how many times every single one of these pieces, there is a phase where I want to give up, where the drawing does not look like it's going anywhere, where I'm like, this isn't turning out the way that I want it to, and I can't figure out why. You're going to have that. You're going to have it all the time. I have it with every single piece. This is another piece here. I was afraid because I really wanted to do one that had a lot of shading. This was when I was still learning about shading a little bit, and I was afraid to do any shading, so I just used straight up line drawings, and I just did a straight up line drawing here. And I thought she was cute. I thought she was really nice. She is a type of woman I see a lot. I lived in Glendale, California at the time, and there are a lot of Armenian people there. It's a high population of Armenian, Russian, Middle Eastern, and this is kind of like the basic profile of the average young woman in her 20s and 30s that you see in Glendale. And so I I did a line drawing that day. But this one also here is from the Betty Edwards book. I used it as a model. I used her picture as a model. But it really fit neatly with my environment at the time because I did live in Glendale, California. Yeah, this one here, I wanted to start drawing bodies, but I still didn't know anything about anatomy or anything like that. So I tried to like kind of fudge my way through it. As you can see, the lines are implied. And this is really the key to making things realistic and more realistic looking, is that you don't have hard lines. The hard lines makes your stuff very cartoonish, okay? Right? And if that's what you're going for, that's fine. But as you can see, some of these lines are already lightened up and they're implied. And you can do different things to lighten up lines. You can use your fingers. You can use toilet paper. You can also use different kinds of erasers. It all depends on how light and dark you want the lines. And you see, these lines here aren't all that even. Some of the darker edges will give the implication, because when you look at a model and you look at the body, the shading, the shadow areas are darker in certain areas of the body and on certain spots than others. So this doesn't have to be a complete thick line because it's going to make her look cartoonish here. So the implied lines where this is a little thicker than right here, and then you have maybe here a little more darkness of the line than along these lines, you see. And it doesn't have to always be continuous either, you see, because this calf muscle here, the line isn't continuous. It stops about right here where you have a little darkness over, you know, a little dark shadow there, but you don't really have a line. And then you have a little hook right there that actually is translated as the heel of her foot. You see, you gotta let people fill in the blanks, and that's the key to putting things down on paper. Is you don't need to be able to draw everything. You just need to be able to put down certain lines and shapes and shadings, and let your viewer fill in the rest. So some of these here are, as you can see, this was where I was at when I finished with the art instruction schools. And it's very cartoonish. I was super frustrated because I was for sure going to be able to draw a realistic portrait. And you know, my model, she loved this. I mean, she was very honored I did this. And, you know, I was dating, you know, we are dating. So, I was very frustrated with myself because I could not make it look like a photorealistic drawing. This here, I used to be stuck on drawing apples all the time. That was the only thing I could draw, was real, you know, apples. So I have one apple left out of the zillions of apples that I've sketched and drawn in my life. But there it is. And this one here, I used some drafting tools to just start drawing random faces and, you know, heads and personalities, whatever I could just draw on paper. So this guy here, he came out. So and I think that's it. Yeah. So let's take a look at art supplies. Yeah. Let's take a look at some art supplies. Now, as a Jehovah's Witness, you know, you're discouraged from doing any kind of art stuff, but it's taken me some years, even after leaving the group, to be able to... Yeah, see, you laughed at me the other day. Now it's your turn again.
I'm so tired.
Go ahead. She can't stop dancing. She wants to stop dancing, but she can't, so... Anyway, go ahead. So, here we have an art bin, and I've been needing to organize my art supplies. So we're going to go through the basic art supplies to start doing some pencil portrait drawings. I was thinking about maybe putting out some pieces of instruction for people to learn how to draw eyes and ears and whatever, you know, or at least share with people how I do mine. So let's go briefly through these. These are dollar store pencils here, and they're actually really good. If you have some 99-cent stores or dollar stores, usually you don't really have the best pencils in there, but you can find these sometimes. These are basic. I got these from the Glendale, California dollar store off of Verdugo Drive. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And these have different leads. 8B, 4B, 2B, all kinds of different leads. And these are important because the B's are softer, and we'll go through them in a later video maybe. They're thicker, and they're a lot darker, and they blend a lot easier. So sometimes for really dark things like maybe the pupils of the eye, or maybe even hair, these are really good to use. Now these are just the cheap dollar store pencils I found in various dollar stores, and the leads are a little harder than the 6Bs and HBs. These are number 2 pencils, and when you sharpen them, they're really great for hair, eyebrows, also to lay out the lines and edges, right? And I like to get them also for the erasers. Sometimes the erasers aren't all that good, but I collect all pencils simply for the erasers, because I go through a lot of erasers. I always keep a Sharpie pack. This is my magic wand here. I draw and write with these things, and there's nothing like an ultra fine point Sharpie permanent marker. I call them pens. They're actually permanent markers. And I create everything with these. Any major plan, any major thing in my life is planned out, and it is written down with a Sharpie beforehand. There is a mind map on it. It is outlined. It is analyzed. It is strategized. And this is the magic wand. This is the start of it all. All my drawings, all my concepts, they start off with a Sharpie here. They started off with a Sharpie. So these are, if you ever want to, you know, send me a Christmas present, you know, or just be nice to me, and you don't know what to get me on my birthday, you can never lose by just sending me a pack of these Sharpies. I mean, I go through a Sharpie about every 2 or 3 days. So another thing that you'll need is blending pencils. As you can see here, they're not a particular color, but they make your drawings very realistic and smooth and wonderful. So this is something that you'll need. And the Prismacolor one, this is the Prismacolor one, PC 1077. So if you go to Blick's Art Supply or any other art supply store, you try to order it online, that would be the number for it. I keep some rubber bands because I have a lot of these pens and pencils, so I keep them banded up. Also, you have different kinds of erasers. Now, you're not just going to draw with your pencil. A lot of people that start off don't understand the importance of drawing with your eraser, and we'll go through that in another video. But different kinds of erasers are key to actually making hair realistic, because hair, when you really look at it closely, there are highlights. There are highlights in hair that are made with eraser, so that's important. We'll go through that. But there are different kinds of erasers. You have the gum erasers, and you even have I'm not taking it out right now, but you even have the netted erasers, and you can knead these erasers into different shapes. So when you have these little tiny marks you have to make, where you have like these tiny little edges that you need to clean up and crisp up, you can flatten that eraser very flat like, and then you can get in that nooks and crannies, right? A problem with people that draw with pencils is that the leads tend to break in a lot of pencils, including the Prismacolors, even though they're kind of expensive. So that's a problem. So having a good sharpener is also a problem, and I haven't found a really 100% reliable sharpener. I hope that this recommendation that I got the other day from someone who worked at Blick's Art Supply gave me is going to work out. She gave me this sharpener here. This has 3 different sizes, as you can see. So it already looks like a winner. It's by a company in Germany. Can you see that? Why is this not stopping? Okay, where's the... Oh, here we go. Faber-Castell, alright? Since 1761. Wow. Okay, so I'm hoping this is going to work out. But the Prismacolor pencils have been known to... The leads have been known to break recently. So, yeah. This is another knitted rubber eraser. And like I said, you can knit this into different... you can shape it into different shapes. And then get those tiny, hard to erase corners and edges. And you can also use these covers here, and they have different edges that you can shape around and clean and crisp up. You see, you have straight lines, you have small curves, you have little circles here, then you have like these half elliptical curves. You see, and these are wonderful lifesavers. So a lot of the work that you see, and you can make your stuff look really, really professional with just a simple tool like this. And then a couple of these erasers. They're like this was like 50 cents. They had a sale, but these are not very expensive tools. A lot of times the stuff that you see where you say, whoa, I wish I could draw like that, it's because they have the right tools. It all starts with the right tools. If you don't have the right tools, your stuff is not going to look as nice. I tried to do the shortcut with dollar store color pencils, and I just learned that my stuff is not going to look the same as with a Prismacolor pencil. Sometimes you have to pay a little extra, but things like if you want to just start off with black and white pencil drawings, well, you can really start off with just basic dollar store pencils, and then a couple of erasers from the art supply store that might be a total of $10. Pieces like buy this, and buy like the knitted erasers, the art gum erasers, this kind here, some paper stumps, some tortillons, some blenders. Get yourself a couple of pieces of toilet paper, and you're ready to go with just basic